last night, we saw Caitlin Clark take the last shot of her season.
A couple of weeks ago that were telling me it's worse now.
The WNBA is in excruciating sorrow over Caitlin Clark's departure, as if they had just lost their lucky lottery ticket.
I feel like I'm getting hammered and everybody is physical with me, and opponents get away with things that other people don't get away with. That's what Caitlin Clark said.
Let's face it, Stephen A. Smith never wanted to remain silent. Blew the league away by pointing out their colossal error and allowing their best star to walk Clark, who gave women's basketball an unparalleled highlight reel and record-breaking viewership, is now showcasing her skills in Europe. What went wrong with this WNBA? Instead of supporting her, the league sat back, and now they're left with the shards of their shattered future. This isn't simply a mistake. The constant fouls, rough play, and lack of protection for their finest asset finally drove Clark over the line. Blooper reels will continue to play these kinds of mistakes for years to come. Caitlin Clark was the player she packed, not just any player. With her leaving for Europe, fans were riveted to their TVs as if it were the final episode of their favorite program, and arenas sold out of jerseys before you could click Add to Cart. Before we go into all the juicy facts of this catastrophic failure, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications. The WNBA is left facing a future without their MVP, and trust me, it doesn't look good. Because, let's face it, the WNBA is about to embark on a roller coaster ride, and not a pleasant one. You'll want to keep informed. Stephen A. Smith was unreserved in his criticism of the WNBA for their monumental error.
Struggled with physical defense she's faced at the professional level and voiced frustration with the league's officiating, recently telling reporters, quote, "I feel like I'm getting hammered and everybody is physical with me, and opponents get away with things that other people don't get away with." That's what Caitlin Clark said.
He clarified what everyone had been thinking. The WNBA stood there with a clipboard, asking, "What can we do? Maybe protect your best player." Caitlin Clark was playing dodgeball instead of basketball, and the league wasn't doing enough to protect her. The WNBA is left wondering how they let this one slip away. The worst part is that Caitlin Clark was the spark that lit up women's basketball. Her game-winning performances and jaw-dropping skills attracted new fans and got people talking. She wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was the reason people were watching in the first place. Losing her means losing the league's lifeblood, not just a player.
Towards things involving Caitlin Clark. When we pointed that out, we said why? What was the necessity for it? Because a rising tide lifts all boats. This woman is box office, plus she can play. And the combination of the two would ultimately give all of those wonderful ladies for the wonderful work.
Stephen A. Smith was spot on. The WNBA allowed her to be run over instead of ensuring her safety and happiness, and now she's packing her bags for Europe, where she will receive the respect she deserves for the WNBA. This loss is like being dunked on in slow motion. It's painful and unforgettable. Caitlin Clark was the player who brought in crowds, raised the league's profile, and converted casual viewers into diehard fans. Without her, the WNBA is frantically trying to figure out what to do next, and let's face it, it won't be easy. Every successful sports league needs a star to carry the banner, and Caitlin was that star. Now, the league is left trying to fill a void that might be too big to fill. Caitlin Clark's decision to leave the WNBA has rocked the basketball world, and it's difficult to place blame because of a fundamental breakdown within the WNBA. Clark's exit has served as a wake-up call for the league as well as sports fans and media partners like ESPN, who were hesitant to recognize her enormous influence. Clark's decision to step away from the WNBA has sent shockwaves through the basketball community, and it's indicative of the deeper issues that the league must address if it hopes to retain its top talent and continue to grow. Let's break down why Caitlin Clark leaving the WNBA is such a big deal, and why it signals that the league has some serious issues to address. First and foremost, Caitlin Clark wasn't just another player in the WNBA, she was the player, the one drawing fans in by the thousands. The one whose name was on everyone's lips, from basketball enthusiasts to casual viewers, were talking about a 400% increase in viewership, a staggering number that should have had the WNBA and ESPN scrambling to put her front and center in everything they did. But instead of treating her like the star she clearly was, they left her exposed to harsh physical play, consistent disrespect, and a lack of institutional support. It's no wonder she decided to pack her bags and head to Europe, where she can play in a league that actually values her contributions on and off the court. At the height of her time in the WNBA, Clark was drawing audiences that were comparable to those at NBA games. On average, her games drew 177,000 viewers, something the WNBA hadn't seen in years. If anything, this kind of attention was exactly what the league needed to expand, but they seemed to be ignoring it instead of taking advantage of it. Clark's ascent to fame should have been a significant story that dominated sports media, but it was frequently handled as an afterthought. The NBA's primary media partner, ESPN, also failed to provide her with the publicity she deserved. It wasn't until it was too late that ESPN realized how valuable she was, and by then, Clark was already looking for other chances. The media's tardy reaction to her success was indicative of a larger problem with the way women's sports are handled generally. To be fair, Clark wasn't only dealing with a lack of media attention. She was also dealing with extremely aggressive fouls that should have been called out and punished right away. But instead of enforcing the rules, referees seemed to turn a blind eye. The physicality of the game went too far, with Clark frequently being the target of rough, unnecessary contact that went unpunished. It became so bad that Clark was frequently left to defend herself without any protection from the officials. This wasn't just about rough basketball. It was outright neglect for a player who was giving her all to the game. The league should have ensured her safety, but they didn't, and that was a major factor in her decision to quit. Clark's story raises serious questions about how the WNBA handles its top players, especially when it comes to their health. Players like Clark, who risk their lives every game, should be protected in addition to being praised for their skill. Everyone knows that a little competitive banter is a part of sports, but the level of hostility Clark faced went far beyond that. It seemed like there was a culture within the league that allowed other players to target her unfairly, with little to no consequences. The WNBA should have intervened to protect one of its biggest stars, but instead it stood by and let it happen. The league's failure to ensure that the rules were followed and that she wasn't being subjected to needless physical harm is a glaring oversight. This wasn't a one-off incident. Rather, it was a systemic problem that negatively reflects on the league's ability to support and safeguard its most valuable assets. The issue of race and women's sports is a continuous discussion that should never be ignored, but Clark found herself at the center of it not because of anything she did, but rather because some players and media figures chose to frame her success rather than celebrate her accomplishments, implying that her rise was due to factors beyond her control rather than her undeniable skill and work ethic. This toxic environment only got worse as Clark's success grew, with some players even trying to bring race into the conversation, reducing her talent and hard work to pointless arguments about privilege. Put athletes like Clark under needless pressure. They ought to be praised for their accomplishments rather than being judged for circumstances beyond their control. Here, we must remember the wider picture. In addition to suffering setbacks on the court, Clark also had to deal with the league's lack of support. Her influence on the WNBA was monumental, but the league didn't seem to know how to handle it. Rather than constructing a future for her, they allowed her to struggle through difficult games without providing the necessary support.
Stephen A., I would be remiss if I didn't say this. A lot of this noise came by people that were sitting on this network. They tried to minimize her, said, well, you giving her all this credit. What about the women that came before her? That Caitlin Clark, what she's doing doesn't minimize what they've done, but we should have been giving her the credit. We saw the ratings, we saw the merchandise sales, we saw the attendance. Caitlin Clark is box office. She's doing this, and instead of giving her credit...
The fact that the WNBA failed to capitalize on Clark's star power is indicative of larger issues within the league's leadership and marketing strategies. The WNBA has long struggled with visibility and public perception, and here they had a player who could have changed all of that. When a player is generating those kinds of numbers in terms of viewership and merchandise sales, you protect them, promote them, and build your brand around them. The WNBA neglected to do any of that. Clark's appeal wasn't just limited to hardcore basketball fans. She had the kind of crossover appeal that could have drawn in casual viewers, expanding the league's audience and boosting its profile in the broader sports world. And yet, despite all of this, the league seemed content to let things carry on as they always had, missing out on a golden opportunity to elevate women's basketball to new heights. And while we're talking about missed opportunities, let's not leave ESPN out of the conversation. As the WNBA's primary broadcaster, ESPN had the perfect platform to showcase Clark's talent and help the league grow its audience. But for most of her time in the league, their coverage was inconsistent. At best, they didn't treat her games with the same level of excitement or respect that you'd see for NBA stars. It's almost like they were waiting for her to prove something, even though her stats and popularity spoke for themselves. When news broke that Clark was heading to Europe, suddenly ESPN was all over the story, but by then it was too late to reverse the damage. The media's role in shaping it is impossible to overestimate. The narrative surrounding athletes and ESPN's tardiness in acknowledging Clark's importance is representative of a larger problem in sports media, where women's sports are frequently viewed as inferior to men's. This problem isn't limited to the NBA. It affects women's sports in all their forms, from track and field to tennis to soccer. The absence of regular, high-caliber coverage not only harms the athletes, but also impedes the expansion of the leagues in which they compete. Clark's exit serves as a reminder that the media needs to play a role in supporting and promoting women's sports if they are to realize their full potential. For the WNBA, Clark's departure is a major loss. She was more than just a player. She was a celebrity who attracted fans and sparked conversations about women's basketball. Her games sold out, her jerseys flew off the shelves, and she increased TV ratings. In fact, she even outsold some of the biggest WNBA legends, like Sabir and Diana Taurasi, but the league treated her as though she was interchangeable, allowing other players to play. The WNBA is left trying to figure out how they let such a valuable player slip away after they targeted her with cheap shots and failed to provide her with the respect and protection she deserved. Let's talk about what this means for the WNBA going forward. Losing a player like Clark is more than just losing a talented athlete. It's a serious blow to the league's development and reputation. In addition to being a great on the court, Clark was also the key to increasing the WNBA's fan base. After her departure requires the league to figure out how to bounce back and draw in new talent. But the bigger problem is how they treat their players. If the WNBA can't provide an environment where its stars feel protected and valued, how can they expect to retain top talent? This is a crucial moment for the league, and they must examine their operations closely if they hope to prevent more incidents like this in the future. Additionally, there is the question of how this affects women's sports more generally, as female athletes already face numerous obstacles that their male counterparts do not, such as lower compensation and less media attention. Even at the highest levels, women's sports still have a ways to go. Clark's situation serves as a reminder that the WNBA has the chance to set an example, but for now, they're teaching the world how to treat their biggest stars badly. If they want to create a sustainable future, they must begin by giving their players the respect and safety they deserve. As for ESPN, they lost a fantastic chance to be a part of something greater. Instead, they sat on the sidelines until it was too late, and now they're left fumbling to figure out how to cover the WNBA without one of its biggest stars. It's not just about the games anymore. It's about how they're going to tell the league's story, and that future looks uncertain right now. Clark could have been the face of women's basketball, and ESPN could have been the network that supported her ascent. Caitlin Clark's exit marks a sea change for the WNBA, forcing the organization to face its shortcomings and reconsider how it handles its players. If they don't learn from this and start making adjustments, they risk losing more talent to foreign leagues who are prepared to offer players the respect and support they deserve. The WNBA had the opportunity to create something amazing around Clark, but they let her slip away. Finding a better opportunity in Europe wasn't the only reason Clark left. She also wanted to defend herself and reject a league that didn't appreciate her accomplishments. Her action serves as a reminder to the WNBA and its supporters that being successful in sports is more than merely finishing last. For additional information and analysis on the newest developments in women's basketball and sports, subscribe. Continue the discussion and we'll see you at the next one.